when is the best time to buy a home? Heck, when is the best time to sell a home? We are diving into the data. Actually, we're going way back, we're moving way forward, and we're telling the complete story. Hey everyone, it's Alyson Wahl with Live South Denver, your real estate strategist and realtor for the South Denver area. All right, the market has had plenty of consistency up until COVID and the pandemic, right? So when is the best time to buy a home? When is the best time to sell a home? And has it drastically changed? And has the baby been thrown out with the bathwater since the pandemic came and everything has kind of been shifted and changed and we don't feel like there's any continuity? Or are actually the same trends really pulling through? And is that same line still there? Well, we are gonna take a look. Come with me. Join me behind the scenes in my statistics pages here in my system. We are looking at data from 2009 to date, and we're looking at monthly data points, right? So this is a long data set that we get to review, and we're looking at some pretty consistent themes here. And obviously, if we go back to 2020 to where we are now, we see some pretty sharp rises in our price points. This is thanks to those incredibly low mortgage rates. Oh, how we all wish we could have those again and forever, but that is not to be. That's why we have the rates we do today, right? 7%-ish and maybe a little higher coming soon. So if we look back here, we're not going to talk just about pricing. We're going to talk about new listing availability and how all of this overlays. But here, what we're looking at is our just Denver metro area, and this is median price points. So January, beginning of the year, January consistently, typically is our lowest price point, or December. It could be one or the other. 2009, don't we all wish we had a home? 161 was our median. But then we hit our high typically May, June, or July. July is usually, most of the time, our top month for price. So that year it was 215. We come back down. We're in December at $200,000. January that year was our lowest. The trend keeps going. July is our highest. Okay, we come back down. December was 209. January was below 200. We come back up, June 217, July 220, right? This is, you're going, oh my gosh, this is not exciting, all right? January, back to 200. We didn't even have major price shifts because this is coming out of the Great Recession, right? So this was a really good time to buy a home if you could, but there was a lot of volatility going on in the market from 2008 to 2011, 2012. So it would have been nice if we all could have seen ahead and had the financial wherewithal to jump in, but that wasn't the case for most people. So June 249, July was a little lower, okay? And then the market really, look at this, it's very steady here. January 230, December was 235, so January was our low point then. June is 264, July 265. This is gonna be easier to see now because the data goes to the other side of the screen. December and January are really neck and neck in 2013. And then from here forward, we have a very steady increase in the market. So it's a shift from post-Great Recession to the market that takes us up to COVID. And it's very consistent. June, July is our high, and January takes us to our low. Typically, this year, actually 2014, December was the highest of the year by $100 on the median. It's not normal, but it does happen. January, we were higher than December, and that was something we would see. Actually, sometimes in December here, things kind of kick into gear. December, we see a lot of activity. In January, we come out of the gates charging forward. It's still the low point of the year going forward. Okay, guys? So June 325, July 315. So that summertime is our high, end of year is our low. Summertime is our high, end of year is our low. And it goes on like this. There's really not much change. The only time that we start to see a shift in that is when we get into COVID, okay? So March 2020, things shift, right? Look at this, peak and valley. Valley, 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 valley. We come up to October 2020, that was the high for that year. This is median, and it comes down. And then we spike way up. I mean, huge trajectory shift because rates are coming down. The government has intervened. There's been a shift in interest rates, and everybody is pushing out of the gates to capitalize on that. We hit our peak in 21 in June, and then we soften out just a little bit, not a ton, and then we push supercharge all the way through April. And that was last year, and then rates pushed up, the Feds intervened, and that was the end of this fun big party we had, and you can see how things have dropped off, okay? January was the low, and then we had a little surge in the spring, and here's where we are. July was our high, and August we had a pretty substantial drop. The trend has really still stayed the same, even through the majority of COVID. Our lows are December and January. Our highs are May, June, July. There's really not been too much shift through that. So I have this conversation with my clients a lot when they say, when is the best time to buy? The majority of home price increase every year is January to June or July. See, we're here, December 315, January 320, and it just keeps going up, 329, 345, 350. Come on, finger move. 361, 365, and 354, 350, 348, 350, 350. That year it stayed flat. So when we're talking about when do you get into the market, if you buy your home before mid-year, you're buying in that particular cycle while home prices are still rising. You're typically getting equity gain when you're on the front end of the year. When you buy on the back half of the year, you're buying in the down cycle. You're typically losing some value when you buy from July through December or January. Now, you're gonna catch back up through the next year, typically, right? There's always a give, there's always a take. But look at the major cycle, it's all upward over the long haul, okay? Now, I can't go back any farther. If I could go back to 2008 or 2006 and show you the dips, I would, but we are still up after the Great Recession. So we're taking this just like a stock. A house is just like a stock, and we're taking the long trajectory on it. There will be dips, just like we're seeing from the peak of, April of 2022 to where we are now. We are not as high as we were back then, which we talk about in the market updates. So if you're looking in the short game, when do I buy? You always would prefer to buy earlier in the year or buy from fall to very early spring. That's the goal price-wise. Now, let's look at it completely differently. Let's look at new listings. Let's look at inventory, because so often the conversation is around, there's not enough choice. I'm not finding anything I like. Those two tie together in some level of similarity, okay? Same thing, we're looking from the 2009 to where we are today. We have our lowest level in January. We dropped down again to our lowest level in December. We didn't get a huge peak here this year. June was the high, but look at how close these are together. Not a lot of inventory came out in 2009. But again, we're just emerging out of that 2008 piece, right? So very different. We dropped down to a deep low in December. Our high is in April. We drop. Low is in December. Lows in December every year. There's no blip on the screen. Always December. March is the high. So we have April, we have March, we have May, again, December, May. We have two similar highs here. We have April, and then we have July, okay? We have June. This one's a pretty good one. That's March. And then we have June. We have May. Come on, one more. July, June. So I went through and I matched up where were we for our peak in new listings and our peak in home prices. They line up somewhat, but like back here when we were peak in new listings and our October was our high month for price, those are months and months apart. We've had months where the peak in new listings was in June, but the high price was in May. So they don't always correlate, but there's some similarity. So if you're looking for inventory, if you're looking for choice, then you're always going to want to be in summer. You're going to want to start looking in April or May. You're looking into June and July. You're looking right around this peak right here, always. But you're going to pay a premium for it. The high prices are typically, consistently, as we looked at, in the summertime. So if you're wanting to get value, if you're wanting to pay the least amount of money for a house, you're going to be searching generally when there's the least inventory, right here in this valley, almost every time. So you typically can't have your cake and eat it too, right? That's disappointing to hear. Now, all the same information applies if you're a seller. When do you want to sell your home? You want to sell when you can get the most money, right? Ideally. Now, if you sell down here in the valley when there's the least inventory, you're typically selling to someone who has to buy. Conversely, a buyer's looking at you, seller, and saying they had to sell. They chose the least advantageous time to be on the market. So do understand that. It's not like they're looking at you and going, oh, they strategically thought I'm going to put my house on the market when there's the least inventory and I'm going to get a premium. You're going to have a premium house to get a premium. So your best bet is to be selling at the peak of the market. But you have to be with an agent who understands how to help you move the calendar backward. You don't list at the peak. You list 4 to 8 weeks before the peak, 4 to 6 minimum. And then you're prepping your house for weeks before that. So you don't look at this and go, well, typically the peak is in June, maybe July, that's when I'm going to list my house. No. If we're saying that the peak is in July, which is when closings are noted, so let's say the closings are 4th of July week, that means the house went under contract in June, possibly end of May, maybe Memorial Day weekend. That means your house was listed early May or mid-May. That means you had your house prepped and on the market and doing some staging and doing some photos in April. It means you may have been packing up and clearing out and doing some refresh on the landscaping prior to that. You may have been doing things even over Christmas break instead of putting all the decorations up and some other things. So you may have been on a months and months and months process for getting your house ready well before that. Okay, so you don't look at that and go, I'm calling up my agent on Memorial Day weekend and saying, I want to be closed in July. It goes way, way, way back. So you need to have someone who's on your game plan with you to get you to that highest price point and show your house really well when you're competing with everyone else, right? You're a small fish in a big pond when you're selling at the peak, not a big fish in a little pond. Okay? Buyers, just like I'm talking to the sellers about backing up your calendar, if you want to buy when there is more inventory but not at the peak of the market, then you should start putting your toe in the water probably in March. Then it gives you some wiggle room and some time, so you're in kind of that March and April pre-rush, pre-push. Even if you're saying, I don't really want to close on the house until school is out, and school for you might end in June. People all over the country don't end as early as we do here in Colorado, but it may be worth it to pay 1 month of your mortgage or to be prepared to give a Colorado seller 2 months of rent back, even if it's free, which happens in our push market, our tense markets. It may be worth it to you because that might amount to $4,000, $5,000. But if you wait until the market is more intense, there are more people, there are more active buyers all pushing, which is not every year. Like right now we're in a slower market, but if we are in a lower rate, higher intensity market, you may have to overbid and it could cost you $25,000 or $50,000 or a higher rate. So you might be better off buying early and just paying a little bit more, paying rent on your other place, paying your mortgage plus another, and offsetting some costs to buy earlier. So talk through and think through some different strategies that might save you money in the long run, which would include buying a little bit earlier in the market and in the buying cycle. All right, if you want to see any more of the fun, interesting, crazy data that we have, if you want to talk more about when is the best time to buy, how to best position your home for sale to maximize its value in the market, please reach out. You know, I always love to connect. I'll see you next week.